Hello, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. What I say, welcome back to Conversations. We are back. We're back for another season of Conversations, and what a way to start! Tonight we've got a legend. Yes, we always keep it like legendary here, but tonight we've got a legend. I mean, a real life legend. Someone I look up to. Is a singer songwriter. Is a broadcaster. He is the host of the phenomenal Turning Point program, the CBN Turning Point program, that has a global audience of almost 100 million people. Now, that is remarkable. That is remarkable. He's the voice of Sounds of Africa on Lufthansa Airlines. So now we've got a legendary person in this place today. I'm so excited. Let me know where you're watching from. Let me know. Good to see you. I'm good to see you, Omotodun. Good to see you. Let me know where you're watching from. You want to share, you want to like, you want to bring everyone here. It gives me pleasure. Without further ado, to bring the man of the hour, my big brother, I call him Uncle M. It is Muyiwa Olarewaju OBE. Uncle M, good to see you, man.
Good to see you, Pastor Ro.
Good to see you. It's been a while.
It has. That's what lockdown did to us all, man.
Well,
As you can see, I've seen my barber, so I'm good.
good to see you once again. Thank you for joining us. Good to see you, Ogogo, all the way from Abuja. Legendary. That's brilliant. See, legendary. I mean, everybody's coming from across the world to see you tonight.
That's
Now, you need no introduction. I mean, practically everybody knows you, from presidents to pastors to CEOs to airlines, across the world. Yeah, but tell us, who is Muyiwa Olarewaju for those that don't know you?
Well, for all of us, there is so much about us, so it really depends on who you want to see or who the subject wants to reveal. So I'm gonna try and just glide through. So I'm the first son of the late Kayode Karimo Olarewaju and Shola Olatunde Olarewaju. I have two older sisters. Both are preachers, actually, but one is more a preacher in how do I put it? She's more, a preacher in the job, whilst the other one is a layperson.
Right.
She sets up Bible schools for church, for more of a square tradition.
Right.
But she's a computer expert, and so then I'm the first son. And I have a younger brother from Nigeria. In terms of my education, I studied music. I have a music degree. I have a business studies degree. And then in terms of work, worked in TV for a while, and then worked in Sony Music, and then and the journey goes on. I'm married to a young lady called Fumilola Aderemi Olarewaju, and I've got two sons, Loni Chibueze and Oluwagbemileke Chinomso.
How do your sons have names from southeastern Nigeria when you're from southwestern Nigeria?
So my maternal side, we're from Omahia. There's Igbo on the maternal
side. Right. I want to ask that.
The Yoruba side is so loud that it just drowns everything, and and the Igbo side played such an integral part of my life that I thought I must make sure I keep the story live so that the boys know their connection to that part. In terms of work, I'm singer, songwriter, worship leader, and then broadcaster here at Premier M, station director and head of music for all the stations. Over in America, Christian Broadcasting Network, presenter of a show called Turning Point, which we've had the pleasure of you being with us in America.
Thank you for that.
which I hope that was fun for you.
It was a whole lot of fun.
And then, I've had the opportunity to do stuff with the BBC, be it Radio 4, be it BBC One, and that's just some of a snapshot of who I. But if I wanted to be kingdom correct, I would say I'm a spiritual being having an earthly experience.
So let's talk about your early beginnings as a person of faith.
Mhm.
We brought up in a Christian home. Did you was it like a natural progression for you? You got born again and went to the ministry, or you had a special call from God? You want to talk to us about that?
Yeah. So I grew up in a Christian home, yes, but my family we're from the Anglican tradition,
Right.
Church of England. We weren't Pentecostals, or some might say Pentarascals. um, my father was a Muslim, hence
Right.
his name, Karim. My mother was actually the one that introduced my father to the faith and taught him how to pray.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So Anglican we were. I bumped into Pentecostalism quite late on. I think I may have been 13 or 14 in Kennington, a church called the Apostolic Church.
Right.
Interesting enough, that was the church where the gentleman who would go on to start Ascension Trust, who are the people who started or run street pastors
Okay.
and things like that. We were in the same church. He was my youth pastor, and then others like the Reverend David Shoshire, who would go on to be one of the big shots in the Baptist Union, and then a chap called Emmanuel Mbakwe, who that small church had a lot come out of it, and that's
Wow.
where we bumped into Pentecostalism. In terms of my faith in Jesus, I didn't really know much about being born again. I knew about prayer. I knew about being going to church. I knew about being good. It was when I got into that church, and my parents were very. I mean, when the adversity hit my parents, they began to explore all sorts. I mean, my parents went to CAC, CNS, and all sorts. I mean, because when you got trouble, it's always interesting to me to observe when people have quite clear minds in their criticisms of others,
Right.
and the choices they make in terms of maybe church or fellowship, and you've not really sat with them to hear what the story is.
Yeah.
It's easy to make judge because we all put the pastor of the church I go to, the Liberty Church, the Pastor Shola Folale, always says this, that put all of us in the right temperature, we will do what most other people do. So the same adversity, people might do. So with my parents, they just went here or there. Actually, it's more my mother. She was the driving force of it. My dad was, I mean, he came from Bismillah Rahman Rahim. He know nothing about spiritual warfare or anything like that. But later on, I discovered a need for a relationship with Christ, and it made a lot of sense. My conversion was very, very non-dramatic. It was quite hilarious, actually. I was sitting in a church. The young people of that church, the Apostolic Church, we'd gone to another branch in Ilford. And I'll never forget it. It was Bank Holiday Monday, Easter Bank Holiday Monday.
Right.
And I sat in this small church, probably, if the place was rammed, 40 people is how much the building can take. I'm sitting in this row and my foot stunk and I could smell them myself. And that was a problem. And I was so embarrassed. Now I'm a kid. God knows I'm still in my teens, and you know, in your teens, you're self-conscious, and
Yeah.
so I'm embarrassed. I can smell my feet, and I think the whole world can smell my feet. And in the middle of that, the preacher's saying something, and slowly I come out of my self-consciousness and I hear him. And I said, you know, Jesus, if this Jesus thing, if it's real, I'd like to experience you. And so he says, say a prayer. I sat down, I said a prayer. And then afterwards, I told someone I said a prayer, and that was it. That was my journey in the middle of worrying about my smelly foot.
By the way, good to see you, Tony Jim, all the way from Lagos. Good to see you, Kunle Fallow, doing my blood all the way from Dart. Gosh, shit, absolutely these days. Good to see you. Good to see Pastor Kingsley all the way from Kent. Yes. Now, one of the things you're known for is your stellar music career.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you begin the music? What made you, what informed your decision to want to do music?
I honestly, my first memories of music. Now, interestingly enough, you know, my mother was she was arty. She was a singer.
Mm-hmm.
She was actually in charge of music and choir at her cathedral. But she was also a radio broadcaster.
Right. Okay.
And the honest truth is, I never wanted to follow her into none of those. My earliest memories, the first job I ever wanted to do that I thought was a job was to be a safari hunter. I thought it was a job to have your khaki shorts and your hat, and you go
be like the Crocodile Dundee or something.
You go after big game, you shoot big game, and you pose with it. I thought that was a job. Yeah, and I wanted to do that job. And thereafter, my parents, because my mother retired from broadcasting. My dad was an academician. He retired. They became farmers, and they wanted me to take over the farm. So they wanted me to go into farming. But over time, as I grew older, the music thing began to resonate in my system. So it probably wasn't until my late teens, early 20s that music became a thing.
Right.
And I wanted to do a music degree. My parents would, nah. My mom asked me to do a business studies degree, which I did. And in the final year of that degree, I started my first year of my music degree, and I was doing the two of them at the same time.
Oh, wow.
And then I used to have hair, you know.
I've seen them pictures.
So that's where the journey of music started for me, really. Late teens, early 20s was, and really, if I'd be honest with you, it was pop music I wanted to do. Even though I was worship leader in church, it was pop music I wanted to do.
Well, now, this probably should have been the first question I should have asked at all. You know, right now you've got the Ankara shawl on your neck, around your neck.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've even asked the question like 1,000 times. Is there a significance, or is just like a fashion style?
Yeah, it's significant for me, and it's, you know, not many people ask. You know, not many people. You'll be surprised.
Oh, really?
Not many people ask. For me, it's significant. I decided maybe 9 years ago or so. I don't know, 10 years ago, I started wearing them. If you've ever watched my video Ekoile,
yes,
on YouTube, you would know the story, because for me it represents the final moments. I mean, from when I left Nigeria as a 9 or so year old, the last conversation I had with my father was him telling me, listen, remember whose son you are. And then he said to me, you know, you and I are similar. Our stomach doesn't take rubbish, so don't go eating any rubbish. And that was it. That was it. Remember whose son you are. That was it. And what he gave me um, uh, this was symbolic of it. You know, he gave me a scarf. He gave me which represents culture, identity, represents my connection to my roots. And you know, it's just, you know, a desire to be a little different. And actually, I'm honestly with you. It's like I'm African, and what would you go and do?
Something you've done very well.
The amount of people, even yesterday, someone said to me, please, when you go to Downing Street, they don't wear it. I'm like, listen, if they can't take my scarf, I don't want to be there. I don't need the invitation, you know. So anyhow,
So you are.
soapbox. I was half of my soapbox there.
And one of the things you've done perfectly or very well is the fact that you've not lost your Nigerian accent.
Some people say it's fake. My wife, when I speak Yoruba, my wife said, she says I sound like an Igbo man. I said, well, yeah, I sound like my family.
You know, so now you studied the music and all that. You know, you wanted to do music. So when did you decide that, or how did you decide that music ministry was the pathway for you?
I didn't, you know, honestly, if I be honest. I mean,
you wanted to be a pop star.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just because of a desire for popularity. It was that I had this weird notion, and you'll be familiar with it as a pastor because you deal with a good number of people, young men, old men, and so you see it all, and so this won't be shocking to you. I had this notion that I formed in my head as I sat in church and listened to people's testimonies, and all I always heard. Now, I'm not saying it's what they said. I'm saying what I heard was, praise the Lord, my life was going so well, my job was going so well, and then God called me.
I've heard that many times.
And I'm sitting there thinking, what kind of nonsense is this where everything's going so well and God calls you? I'm like, I'm not going to. And I took from that, listen, you're making excuses. You were a bad manager. You were bad. Now you want to use the gospel, even as a young person. So I had that nonsense in my head. So I was like, I am not doing gospel music. I'm not going to be one of those say I was going to do great music and then God called me. I said, I'm going to do pop music. And if I fail and I do something else, then, you know.
Like the Nigerian Billy Ocean.
Billy Ocean didn't fail. Don't say that.
I mean, like pop music, like, I mean, like, you know, I didn't say you failed. I'm just saying that type of music.
So for me, where it happened now, what I wasn't cognizant of was that before my mother had two girls older than me. I said she wanted a boy, but my dad was done. My dad wanted two girls and he was fine.
Right.
And my mother begins to pray and then she has an experience. She was sleeping and she was being handed a child that she perceived was a boy. And as she went to grab the boy, the hand took the boy back and said, you have to promise to give him back. And she was like, yeah. So she gets pregnant. Now, of course, that didn't happen by accident, you know. My dad did something. Praise the Lord. They did something.
and the church shall say,
I was standing here only because. So she when they give birth to me, she remembered, and this other interesting thing. They give birth to me, and you know, culture takes its course, doesn't it? You know, the elders, the pastors, the family, they're gonna have a naming ceremony, and she's forgotten her experience. And as they do in my culture, they have like 10,000 names.
Yeah.
For the child, every uncle, every grandparent is given a name. And just before the naming ceremony starts, my mother says she hears a piercing ringing noise that drove her wild. So she ran out of the room. And when she got out of the room, She heard, now they're already seated for naming ceremony. She heard the same voice she heard in her sleep say, remember, we told you this boy is not yours. We gave him to you. So she runs in and tells my dad, listen, this is what I've just heard. And my dad did something which in hindsight now, knowing the culture, was quite bold. He scrapped all the names. Now, you know, and I know that in our culture, that moment belongs to the elders. You might hide the child, but this belongs to the tribe. So for him to have the balls to scrap the names, it took something. And which is why they now gave me the name Oluwalumuyiwa. God has brought this one.
Right.
So really, you know, when I spout off my names, really, there's only a couple of names in there. Oluwalumuyiwa, which is Muyiwa, Adebayo, which is my middle name, Olarewaju, which is my surname, and then Ishola Morintinjobola, which is what we call in my culture Oriki. Something of a title that describes what the child is and what the child will be. So really, in all, I've only got 3 names: first name, middle name, and surname.
Okay.
But when I say it, makes it sound like there are 20 million names in there. So for me, my mother had made that covenant with God, and you know, Pastor Rowe, and your Christian viewers will know the power of a covenant. So I wanted to do pop music, and let me tell you, I was working in Sony. I was looking after artists like Mariah Carey, Bob Dylan, Maxwell, Fugees. I was at the epicenter of what was happening musically. I was then making my own music on the side. I had a sponsor that was putting $40,000 a year into my music career to make music. I was being managed by the same manager as Stevie Wonder, but it just kept tanking. It just wasn't working. So in the end, and I guess God knowing that I could, you know, I'm quite a focused type, you know, I keep banging at it, and I wouldn't hear his voice when he was talking to me. So he decided he would just help me. He would guide me through. So I was in service, preacher was preaching, and honestly, it was a bore. And not supposed to say that, but you know, I'm old enough to speak my mind now. Sorry. And my best friend Eddie Kwesinyako Martin, who they know as Quincy Jones, the producer, he whispered to me, "Let's go outside." And he said to me, "Listen, why don't we make an album, a gospel album, you know, as a gift to God?" Like, yeah, why don't we do that? So we called all our friends, you know, the guy that he was then MD of Kylie Minogue, the one that MD of Jason Donovan. We all came together. We recorded Restoration, where you get, and we will say our God is good.
Well, that's a classic, though.
Well,
That song is a classic.
I feel that. So we wrote 4 albums. We recorded the album, and the idea was record it and give it to a record label. I could carry on with my life because I knew music industry. You give it to a label. We bumped up against the reality of life, that even in Christian music, there are race issues, because we sent the record out without any names. No one knew what it was. It's just praise and worship. And the feedback that came from all the labels then was, "Oh, this is great praise and worship." When they knew it was Muyiwa Olarewaju on it, they came back and said, "Oh, it's great gospel." Now, those who know there's a massive difference.
Yeah.
Great praise and worship for everyone, black, white, Chinese, whatever. Gospel, it's only for a niche group that's made by black people, for black people, and maybe some others. So when they didn't know who I was and just listened to the music, it was great praise and worship. Once they knew the worship leader was black, it was great gospel. And that was how no labels would take it. And I thought, we put money into this thing, need to make it work. My expertise as a record industry person would put to work, and that was where the journey for River Song started.
Right.
And then I woke up to the fact that, you know, God had been speaking to me all the while, and I said, "Okay, I'm sorry, Lord, for wanting to be a pop star It's all about you, Jesus.
You touched a nerve there, when you brought up race. How is it? I'm trying to find the right way to word this. How do we find so much racism in the church or in church music industry as we do in the world?
I think we do ourselves a disservice by being shocked. It's just human. It's human beings. It's human nature, and it's nothing. It's not like it's not happened before. I mean, in the Old Testament, it was there. In the New Testament, it's there. That's why Paul writes in the book of Galatians. I mean, he was having a discussion around a circle discussion around this subject, and the question was, is this particular Christian organization, does it espouse what Paul was saying, that there's no Jews, no Gentile, no black, no whites, yada yada yada? And some people were really upset that, why do we need to have this conversation? I said to them, listen, when you look at that text, Galatia, according to Gaius Flavius Josephus, the historian, was one of the most diverse cities on earth at that point,
right?
In terms of race. Yet Paul still had a need to address the issue, which if we understand racism to be where a group retains power and access based on their race and exclude others, and that's what the Jews were doing. They were excluding others from gaining access and said you have to do X, Y, Z, and they were given barriers to these non-Jew Christians to access, which is why Paul had to address it, and that's what we're dealing with now. So why do we find it so much still? It's because there are humans who are still learning to be like Christ,
right?
And I dare say, as much as we would like to think, oh yes, in our children's time it's all gonna be so, I'm sorry, it would always be there. It would always be there in one shape or form. I mean, we are now saying things. My wife used to argue with her 80-something-year-old mum when she was much younger. Her mum would say certain things, and my wife would be upset. Mum, how can you say that? People are not like that. Let me tell you, my wife is saying the same things now that her mum. So I don't think it's, of course it's bad, of course it's wrong, but it's always been there. As long as there are human beings, it would always be there.
Yeah,
of our fallen nature.
Fair enough. Well, people are people. Right? It reminds me of a story my dad told. I shouldn't be saying this in public. In the early 90s, when he wrote his,
it's just us talking. Nobody.
When he wrote his first book, someone of a different racial persuasion was like, "Wow, that's such a good book. Did you really write it?" Like you shouldn't write a book this good.
Now, about what time would that be?
The early 90s.
Okay, so we're talking early 90s, right? Years after that, I'm here at Premier Radio, right? And I have to deliver something to staff, and one guy came up, white brother came up, and said to me, "Oh, you speak so well. What school did you go to?" In my head, I said, "God punish Satan." You and whose father? You from where to where?
You speak so well.
So, so So it's there. It's always going to be there. But thank God for knowledge of Him and the opportunity to 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 grow in knowledge and grace, so that when you encounter it, what you don't do is to do what they would do. What you do is respond. What would Jesus do? You do what Jesus will do, but you can only do that if you're if you're renewed.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if not, you'll go straight to be a neckwe. You
catch this hand.
I'm telling you, I throw hands. Hi, Jesus, don't try me. I throw hands. Yeah.
Now, you are an accomplished gospel artist, worship leader, and all of that. But you're also a seasoned radio and television broadcaster. So how did you begin in broadcasting?
I fell into it, honestly. I fell into it. It just happened story. It just happened that I recorded that album I mentioned. I didn't mean to, and it just happened that, the record company wouldn't take it, so I had to do the work on it myself. It just happened that someone gave that record to someone here at Premier and said to me, you know how people do, yeah, just call him. I gave it to them. It's all sorted. Call him. I called Premier, and the guy who then I called at that time, he run me off the phone. Like, I'm busy. I do the breakfast show. I'm head of music. And I'm like, whoa, calm down. I was just told to call you, not knowing, what the deal was. Just a side note that years later, that same guy become his boss's boss.
Wow.
And interesting enough, I become head of music, which was the role he had when he was running me off the phone. Not just for the platform, he was looking after all the platforms. But that's just a side note. But it just happened that I came here for an interview in this very studio I'm sitting in to promote the record. It just happened, Pastor Rowe, that they had dismissed the then presenter, gentleman, a legend in the industry, really, called Benny King, who, I mean, he now has 3 radio stations out in Africa that are doing.
Yeah, I know Benny King. He
was here doing a show. They'd gotten rid of him, and for a year they were looking for someone new to take over. They couldn't. It just wasn't working. Now there were people who were qualified for the job, but it just wasn't working. So then I come in. It just happened that the right person heard the interview I did. The head of programming heard the interview I did. When I left, went to the chief exec and said, I might have found someone. So they called me to come back. It just happened that they said, well, would you tell them? Of course.
Why not?
And I started that radio show. That's how I fell into radio. And one show became 2 shows, became 3 shows, became where we're at now. Now, TV again was just another, it just happened. And it sounds ridiculous, but that's what it is. So when people approach you and say to you, oh, how do I get into it? Can you, I could have, Pastor, I could have written 5 books and 5 steps to get into radio. That would have, and there are some steps you can take, but they wouldn't have been authentic to
your journey in this story.
So it just happens. I'm on radio and I came on and I was making no apologies for who I am. So I'll come on and say, hi, my name is Muyiwa Olarewaju. It's like, whoa, who is this Negro? It just happened. Some lady was listening. She was so shocked by hearing me again and again. She calls her brother-in-law in America and says, there is this new kid on the radio. He's just pure energy. The man starts to listen, right? It just happens that he starts to research me. It discovers I do music. it just happens, right, that the pastor of the church, the deputy pastor of the church that I was going to then, which is House on the Rock, Pastor Charles Ikutuminu, he had left to go to America to do his master's, right? And I'm the kind of guy, I think of you, I'll call you. And I've been wondering, how's he doing? I've been trying to get hold of him. And it just happened that finally, after months, I managed to get hold of him. Guess who he was living with? The same man who the lady had called to say, there's this kid in London.
Wow.
When I'm speaking to Pastor Charles, he says, guess what? There's someone who wants to speak to you. Like, who do I know? The man comes on the phone. He says, Muyiwa on Premiere. I'm like, hello? He says, I've been listening. I've been looking for you. It just happened, Pastor O. This man was the presenter of a show called Turning Point International.
Wow.
He asked me, would you come with your group to, of course, I'm going to America to see on TV. We go to America. It just happened, Pastor O, that when we finished, he had me speak at chapel. CBN have like 2,000 staff and they have chapel where everyone comes. So he had me speak. After speaking, he called me and he says, how would you feel about taking up after me on the show when I'm done? I'm like, I'm just a black kid from London. Of course, you say, of course, why not? 7 years pass. It just happened, Pastor O. He decides, his name is Victor Ladokun. He decides to leave. His time was done. He leaves the show. I get a call from a young lady called Erica Linney, saying, we're trying out a new thing. We're thinking of you. Would you come? Of course. So I think it's Victor Ladokun that said to them, now I've left, try Muyiwa. So I call him to thank him. He has no idea what I'm talking about. It just happened that when Turning Point were changing presenters, when Victor Ladokun left, for a year, they were trying different people, just like Premier, and it wasn't working.
Wow.
So we began to pray, and this young lady, Erica Linney, she says she hears the name Muyiwa. She says, listen, we had a guy come, Muyiwa, let's check out if he's interested. That's how I end up in TV.
Whoa.
And that becomes BBC. That becomes Lufthansa Airlines. It just happened. It just happened. It just happened.
So basically, God orchestrates all these events.
Rasta.
You just walk into them.
Let me tell you, he was the master orchestrator in it all.
Wow. Wow. This is so amazing. Now, Uncle M, you have to come back.
Well, if you let me out.
We have to make this happen because there's so much. I mean, I would have all the time in the world today, but you have to come back. So you make a promise to us that you're coming back.
I'll make a promise and I'll say my Hail Marys.
You know, everyone that knows you,
yeah,
right, seems to say the same thing about you. You know, that you're a humble person. In spite of all your accomplishments in life, you're humble. Not like the guy that, I mean, that in his church, he won the award for the most humble man in the church. And a few months later, they had to take the award because he became too proud of the award. You know, but
outrageous. Oh my God.
But everybody knows just how much. So how have you been able to stay grounded with all the fame?
I think it's a number of things. I mean, I could reel off some textbook stuff, but I think one, upbringing is an important part of that. Yeah, I think upbringing is an important part, and my socialization also is an important part. Half the reason that people get heady is the insecurities that they have.
Right.
Yeah, it's the insecurities that they have, except they have some psychological imbalance. It's insecure. Well, you could say insecurities are psychological imbalance of some sort, but so it's upbringing, it's my socialization, and also the context I find myself in with my wife, and also actually it's understanding. We have this rule. One of the guiding principles in our family is rule number 6. Rule number 6 was coined by Benjamin Zender, who was the conductor of Boston Philharmonic Orchestra. Rule number 6 simply is don't take yourself so seriously. You're not that important. You know? And we live by that. So I don't take myself so seriously, and I also understand for real that with this Jesus thing, he is the king, and I'm just I'm grateful to be a brother of Jesus, to be a son of God, but also to be the donkey that he rides. I truly believe that, and you don't believe you're the press, man. I mean, and it's easy to say it. Not a lot of cats live it, and I could tell you stories galore of and it's decisions you make. It's decisions you make when you have the opportunity. I've been in rooms where your father was, Daddy Gio was, big names are, and I watch certain characters position themselves and say things to amplify their cardboard, to say I'm here and I'm funky and I'm connected, and you and that's part of the routine for a lot of people when it comes to a certain part of ministry.
Yeah.
And you have to make up your mind as to, do I do that, or do I do that and just join them and join the treadmill and get the benefits thereof, or do I just sit in my corner and they ignore you? Dude, let me tell you, all sorts of people said all sorts, and some might say all sorts, but in the end, God speaks by the things he's done through. I mean, I could be riding the horse of accolades, of stuff that by the grace of God Riversong's done, but I just leave it alone, and then people have a lot to say, and in the end, there's only one gospel artist with an OBE in the history of this country, but so how do I do it? It's a conscious decision that I decrease and he increases. It's also living with the kind of woman I live with, and it's also the grounding and the background I have. Those are just some of the reasons, some of the things behind it.
Yeah. So before I let you go, right now, as this legendary gospel artist.
Now, Pastor Rowe, you could take your time, until you feel. Don't let me go because you're feeling sorry for me. I know what we said before we came on air. Let me go when you feel okay. I've got enough.
I can't get enough of you for one night, to be honest.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Forgive me.
Yeah, I can't get enough. So it would probably be. I mean, we'll be here for hours, for days on end. So we're coming out of a lockdown next month, right? And a lot of people were home. I've been home since March last year. Kind of enjoyed it. If you were in isolation, or in a, like we all were, or in a hypothetical desert all by yourself, and you could listen to only 5 albums, what would they be?
Oh wow!
And I know that's a tough one.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I would have a.
Okay, let's make it 10.
Oh man, even then, because I chop and change. You know, I could be in the car and I'll go to Radio 3 and listen to some classic FM, and you know that would get me praying and in tears. Then I'll go to Hallelujah, Katego. You know, the next minute, and so it's oh man. I would just. I tell you what I would like to take. I would like to take a CD that allows me, by reason of satellite, to access uh, the best gospel song, or the hit gospel song at that point. You know,
That's it.
no, that's technology. I mean, you didn't put any boundaries on it. You just said it's a remote island, but you know, a remote island would be uh okay. Ekoile. Oh, hello, Neka. Wow, Neka's talking about Ekoile
Yeah.
album. So that's encouraging. But yeah, I would love to take a CD which allows me to access satellite technology that downloads for me the latest hit song, the latest hit gospel song. That's what I think.
I know you've had a lot of collaborations, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you could collaborate with any 5 gospel artists from the past or present, who would they be?
Wow. Well, you know, who would they be? Well, while I'm thinking, interesting thing, I'm doing some collaborations at the moment. So
Okay.
to do a new version of Safe in His Arms with Ada Ehi.
Okay.
Yeah. But who would I collaborate with?
I mean, from the past or right now.
Whew. Marvin Winans would have to be on the list.
Man can sing.
He's just yeah. Marvin Winans would be on the list. A name that would be on the list that people would know is a gentleman called Ikoli Harcourt White.
I've heard about him.
Yeah. He
wrote Hallelujah Chimle, right?
Yeah, Egburu Jesus, he wrote. Ikoli Harcourt White is he's an old hymnist.
Right.
When I say old, I mean 40s, 50s.
Wow.
Eastern Nigeria. He wrote songs back then that the history books record that when they were sang in the cathedrals, revival broke out on the streets.
Wow.
It's documented, but you have to look around for it to see it. He was a young man with leprosy that was healed by God.
Yeah.
So Ikoli Harcourt White would definitely be on my list.
Is it possible to have like a collaboration, or like to have his music made into an album today?
Absolutely. Actually, maybe that's a challenge you're throwing out to me, because it's his music is not just great spiritual songs. His music carries with it a massive vault of history and culture, Nigerian history and music history and music culture, and African history and African culture. Because when you know his music, you know of what was happening at that point and that time, not just in the east of Nigeria, but widely. And so maybe that's a challenge. I would love to. Another, and he's not so gospel. Another artist who I'm working on at the moment, I'm trying to do a collaboration with, is Stevie Wonder.
I love Stevie. I love Stevie.
He's not gospel.
He's one of the groups.
You know, so that's another person. Um, um, uh,
I mean, we can take Stevie off. It'll be on. It'll be in the next list.
okay. Who else? Who else? Who else? Micah Stampley, definitely.
Boy can sing.
Yeah. I think if I could do Uncle Fred.
Ooh.
But it will be, I would like to write the song with him.
Right.
With him, because that brother's, he's just a beast when it comes to songwriting. I make you laugh. There's a guy, a UK gospel singer, who was one of the, one of the known names and known voices. Never released a record in his life. I mean, he was in it years before I came along. So that shows you how long he's been in it. I remember once him saying, he doesn't like Fred. Fred is rubbish. I looked at him and I thought,
who says that?
What have you done? You have not passed primary 5. And the man in university, you're telling him he's rubbish. You've got to do your times table, your times table. But yeah, so I mean, I don't, yeah.
Someone is we got to say one saying do so here can, someone else says don't mind.
This is my baby. This is my baby. This is nuts. I mean, there are a whole load of artists who are either in vogue or from Mercy Chinwo to Sinach and then when you come Don Moen and you come here to Noel Robinson, there's so many. A lot
of them you worked with already.
Sorry?
A lot of them you worked with already.
Absolutely, one way or another. But yeah, there's just too many. It's just, I'm just grateful to God for the opportunity to know some of these people and have the opportunity to work with them. But there's some of them who, like I said, Fred, I'd love to write with him because of not just his depth, but he knows how to create a song that resonates.
Yeah.
And what you might call a hit song.
I mean, I had Pages of Life part 1 and 2 on repeat years ago. Like,
let me tell you, the song that's doing me at the moment is God, which I thought was Israel's song, honestly, until 2 weeks ago. I was sitting in my studio and the young gentleman who's resident in my studio, the producer, says, no, that's John Rosario, but Freddie Hammond wrote it. No, it's not. So I called Fred Hammond. I asked, Uncle Fred, is this your song? Like, duh. Like, Jesus. And there's a particular line in the song. Oh, thou who knoweth my beginning, thou who created the plan, who orchestrated my life journey, Lord, you are my God. I'll forever give you praise, honor, and celebrate your name, God of the past, present, and who's to come. But the line that gets me all the time is the God who, through my transitions to my position. Oh, wow.
That's deep.
Through my transitions, and you preachers, you tell us, it's not in the straight lines, it's in the bends.
Yeah.
Nice twisted, that's when we lose it. But some kind of way, God kept me together.
That's precious. That's about, I mean, that's a good place to hope.
Yeah. And even and the thing, it makes my toes are tingling at the moment because I can see that truth describes, it gives language to a lot of my journey, because I mean, when you take, for example, this moment with the OBE. Now, I know many people who had said all sorts, but
Mm.
how God through the transitions can just, bro, I knew nothing of the award. That said, though, 6 years almost to the day that the award was given, a friend of mine had given a prophetic word that I've still got on my phone. Right?
Oh,
I've still
wow.
got on my phone. He sent me a text. He said, "Listen, I can't sleep. God is speaking." Da, da, da. I looked at it. I thought, "What's wrong with this black guy? These black people have come again with it, my friend." And he said specifically, "You will be recognized by the Queen for the work you done." That's 6 years, almost to the day that the letter came. Right? The things that happen in those 6 years, whether you're hot, you are not, you are this, you are that, and through all those transitions, my God, ah,
That preaches by itself.
I feel like shouting.
Shout if you wanna.
Woo! That's why I want to write with Fred Hammond. Through my transition, God kept my position. Lord, you are my God.
Mm. I've got someone saying, "Add God City Worship to your list." You guys don't have a song yet.
Man.
Now let's talk about pop star Muyiwa.
I wish.
Either who are the 5 artists? You
Mhm.
know, like if you could collaborate with them, who would they be?
Ooh, interesting. That's easier for me, you know. Stevie's one. Clef is another one. Who else?
Cliff Richards.
No, Clef. Wyclef Jean.
Oh,
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
God.
Clef is one. I would love to. I would love to collaborate with an artist called Michel Jean-Jacques, who's an electronic
I don't know that one. Shame on me.
music. I would like to collaborate with Gims, French artist. I would love to collaborate with who else? Jadelle Monet.
I like Janelle Monáe.
Yeah, I would love to collaborate with her, and I would love to collaborate with the Roots.
They are probably one of the greatest bands in the world.
Easy. The only band that I've left the country to go and watch in concert abroad.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
How was that experience?
it was insane. Whew. Oh my goodness, it was spiritual.
Did they have all the solo choirs in the room?
It was just too much. It was just too much. I just, yeah, it's just, I'm trying to think which other music experience has been like that for me. And the reason I said it was spiritual is because I understood the source of the creativity, because I was a born again Christian. I could appreciate the creativity beyond just their musicality, you know. So yeah, it was. So yeah, them I would love to collaborate with, you know.
And Black Thought with the words.
Wordsmithing.
Let me since the priest is here, let me go to confession today. My friend, I went to Vegas.
Yeah, to see Sunday, a guitar mentos.
I went to Vegas and to see one of my mentors, a pastor. and, and is to see the kind of pastoral mentor I have. He took me to see Mariah Carey #1.
Ooh.
We were there with some other ministers, and I knew the words to every song.
Well, well. Actually, you know what? Whilst we're there, the other concert experience that maybe was sort of close to the roots was Luther Vandross.
Woo!
That was at Royal Albert Hall. That was whew, that was something else. Yeah, that was something. That was more than Prince for me.
More than Prince.
Yeah, it was more than Prince because the lyrical content of Luther I connect with
Right.
on a level more than his ability to vocalize a thing. Prince is about the vibe, the energy, the musicality of it, but the words get me. You know, the words get me. Dance with my father again. Oh man. Ooh, that song, every time I hear it, man, it makes me cry because I think about Ayo Olarewaju and I wish I had an opportunity just to be with him again. Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, Pastor Rowe.
So, Uncle, if I let you go, but you have to come back. If I let you go, let's take the sinners back to church.
Man.
That's a joke. So what's God been burning in your spirit in this season?
Let me tell you, and you'll forgive me. I'm not one of your. I mean, you got enough deep speakers and thinkers around you. You know,
deep.
I'm not going to go into. But you know, for me, the one thing that's ringing in my heart at the moment is as a result of the death of one of our brothers, Dari Adeboye, Daddy Gio's son, who passed away a few days ago. A young man I knew very well, and knowing some of the fallout of that, apart from the heartbreak, knowing some of the fallout of that, and knowing how, in terms of my culture, the Nigerian culture, naturally there'll be a whole constituent of people who'll be thinking thoughts like, well, if his dad is so anointed, why didn't he see it? And a lot of the negativity that would come with that. And you know, the thing that hit me was, wow, I wish we all as Christians would be more kind in not just in our thoughts, but in our deeds, one to another. And it hit me a few days ago that if we were more kind in our thoughts, you know, Christ says, by our love would men know us. It's not the miracles we do, or it's the love, which is why the millennials and the young people have a challenge. You know, they have a challenge. We have more miracles happening in the church than ever, but they're not interested. They're asking questions about how we are watching, how we treat other people. And I thought to myself, man, if we would be more kind in our thoughts and in our deeds, how much better a body we would be. How much easier his kingdom come and his will be done will be. So that's one thing that's a big thing in my house. Rather have a child that's a C student but treats people well than an A-star child that's an arse. We know that in my house. And it's, for me, I see, and I've had the opportunity to see ministry at the highest level, whether it's in Pentecostal circles, whether it's in high church, you know, and to see how badly we treat each other. You think, so what's the speaking in tongues about? What's the
Mm-hmm.
laying of hands for if at the core of you, you are mean as a dog? You know, what's the, have you not read your book? It says in that day, they will say, did I not prophesy in your name? And he will say, depart from me, you know. So
Mm.
that's been that Darius transition is amplified that in my system. And also it's amplified my thoughts on my eschatology. I think we have an unfortunate uh, way that we think about death, which is
Mm-hmm.
not feel helpful. Now, of course, it's a painful thing, and people pass and you lose them, and that. But you know, let me do this. You know, half the reason we spend time, because it took a while for me to get to this, and because I'm like, why, if we are so looking forward to heaven, why is it that when someone is passed, we go crazy about bringing them back?
Mm.
It was one of my older brothers, mentor type. He was a real powerful man of God, and we never imagined that he would go before any of us. And I remember when he transitioned, sitting in his home, and the prayer was going up, and they were screaming, "Come back, come!" And he had been terribly sick. And I thought, now why the hell would you want to bring him back into a sick body?
And the funny thing is, this man is in heaven saying, God, this niggas is crazy.
It, you know, it's like, and I'm thinking, don't you know he is seeing what he's been preaching about for years? Why would he want to leave that brightness, light, to come back to paying bills, stressing with church members? And I concluded it's because of this, and this is an analogy that one of your preacher friends used. He said, this is the whole of our existence, you know, time and eternity, but we only concentrate on this bit of it, which is the bit that we
Time.
know, the time on earth, and all that. So we concentrate, but we forget that there's a whole lot of eternity to deal with. And so when I caught that, we began to re-engineer my home. I sat down with my children, my 10-year-old and my 13-year-old. They know that when we transition, death is just a door that we have to go through. And yes, we might cry because the person is gone, but actually they've gone to the place that we all longing for, that we all preparing ourselves. My 10, my 13-year-old know that. So the transition of that, so two things is just looking again at my, hey, you preachers call it eschatology, and also just looking at how I treat people, how I treat, be kind to them, you know, to those who are of the household of faith, and even those who are outside. Be meek, you know. Do I know? Okay, you say Jesus called them some serpents. He called them a sepulcher with dead bones inside. But you know, those were the Pharisees he was talking to, and it was for their own good. You know,
Yeah.
but you know, that's another discussion.
You know what you're saying is so powerful. You know, it's just so real. Usually I don't talk much on the show, rather you talk. But it just we're talking in church on Wednesday during Bible study, and I like to make this analogy. You know, when Jesus told his story about the Good Samaritan,
Mhm.
you know, he said the priest walked past this guy. You know, when they asked him who's my neighbor, the priest walked past this guy. So I said maybe the priest was wearing like a Tom Ford suit. £2,000 suit. I was like, nah, I can't touch this guy. Nah, I can't touch him. It was the senior pastors, and they walked past him. Then the next pastor comes by. Maybe was wearing, maybe it's a Ted Baker suit.
Mhm.
One rung down the ladder, and it was like, I'm too fresh for this, and walks away. Then this guy, Jesus was called, when they wanted to insult Jesus, they called him a Samaritan and someone who had a demon.
Yep.
This Samaritan sees this guy and helps him. If he wanted to go to church or a religious house with any person, who would he go to?
Mhm.
The guy that helped him.
Yep.
And one of the things, I've been in church long enough to know that one of the things we kind of pride ourselves in is the fact that we are mean. We just want to be mean.
It's functional. Not dysfunctional. Just giving the Holy Ghost more work to do that he don't need to do.
Well, Uncle Em, it's been so lovely having you. Thank you for honoring us with your presence.
Oh no, thank you. It's been a
everybody said you've got to come back.
Oh no, I'd love to. I'd love to. It's I mean,
if you don't come back soon, there'll be a petition.
No, please don't.
Placards in front of Premier Radio saying, "Come back, come back, come back to conversation."
No, I'd love to. I'd love to. I mean, it's been a joy speaking. I mean, you'll forgive. Sometimes I ramble, but I guess that's why they put me on radio. But we didn't talk about songs and what makes a song a good song and things like that. So there's still so much more to. Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Before you leave, if you don't mind, can you just say a word of prayer?
Yeah. Father, we thank you for this moment. We thank you for fellowship. We thank you that our steps are ordered, and my brothers and sisters who are listening to this, whether now or later on in rebroadcast, their steps have been ordered by you. Father, I thank you that you would help someone to know the strength and the confidence that only comes from you, that their steps are ordered by you. I pray my brothers and sisters who have been struggling and striving for a thing with no rest, that you, God, can do the impossible in the same way that you've done with Muyiwa Olarewaju, where it just happened. I pray you would cause that to happen in their lives, but help them to rest in you and be faithful in their rest in you, to know that you are the God of faithfulness without injustice, who does all things well in his time. I pray that you'd just give all of us the grace to be able to rest from our strife and be still so that you can be God. Whether it's with the children, whether it's with the career, whether it's with the business, I pray for those who are struggling with making the business work at this point. I pray you would cause them to know shalom. We speak rest to them right now, that they may not struggle or wrestle with the business anymore. Just be still so you can do what you want to do. Thank you for knowledge of you. Thank you for relationship with you. Thank you for the gift of access that you allow us to have. We're confident in you. You are our God. And through our transitions, you always keep our positions for the glory of your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much. I've seen my Lagos mummy, Dr. Jenna Onolakwa. She's coming sometime soon. I'll hook you guys up for the date. Uncle Em, thank you so much for and it's been such a pleasure. And guys, thank you for joining us. Next week we'll be having Bishop Godwin Abba, pastor of Word Life Church, all the way from Abuja, Nigeria. It's going to be late. Not Uncle M late, but it's going to be late.
You get some real spiritual food, not this bald-headed Maltese head making jokes about spiritual things.
All right, guys. Have an amazing weekend.
Thank you.
At 2 p.m. on Sunday on Facebook and YouTube. Of course, because we're in lockdown. God bless you all. Love you all. Bye-bye.